Hey everyone, it's Laurent here today, and originally I wasn't planning to make a video on the patch notes, but in my stream earlier today, a lot of people were asking me for my opinion and wanted to know my thoughts, so I thought I might as well make a video out of it, and I thought that other people would be interested as well. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and personally, my favorite change is the first change, and this is with Vladimir. He is now Drain instead of just dealing the damage, and I think this helps him a lot because before, you didn't really have any sustain with him, like you gotta deal this damage, and you had a bit of a downside for dealing damage to your own units and dealing damage to the Nexus. Like, yes, it's direct damage, but there wasn't much ways to stabilize after this, so I think this is a relevant change. I don't think this is going to make him like this great champion all of a sudden, but I think it gives him a next step toward playability, and I think that's what we needed to see with him, so I'm happy with the change. I also really like how they changed the text of the card, and instead of just like making him more health or less health or something like that, I like seeing this actual change, and I think that makes it a lot more fun to experiment with, and it's something that I'm really excited to try. I plan to make those decks in the future of Vladimir, so if you want to see those, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can see them. After that, the next change is actually a nerf to Karma, which is something the community's been wanting to see for a bit. This change, I don't feel like it's going to be super relevant. 5 cost to 6 cost. Generally, you weren't really playing Karma on 5 anyway because you wanted to protect her. This slows her down just a teeny tiny bit, and maybe you aren't able to protect her as easily just because it does cost 1 more mana, and 1 mana is pretty relevant in this game. I don't expect Karma to see any less play though after this. This is definitely a kind of like a little, you know, like tap on the wrist. I can't even call it a slap on the wrist. It's just like a little tap of like, you know, scoop back a little, and that's about all I see from this. I would like to see more personally, and I think she's going to be a problem as we keep continuing on with this game, but at the time, I don't think she's the worst thing ever. Like, there are much more offensive cards than Karma, I would say, although Karma is one that I feel like will just continue to be an issue because she is an insane power level. Next one is a buff to Shen, a card that I feel like this is probably like one of the least played cards in Legends of Runeterra. I feel like he just doesn't get played much at all. There was a Fiora and Shen barrier deck that was played for a bit, but after that, just about nothing. However, the attack buff of 2 to 3 power, I don't think it's going to be relevant pretty much at all. Like, it's a little something. Like, don't get me wrong, it's something, but that isn't really Shen's issue. His issue is, you know, there's only so many barrier things, as well as the fact that he has to attack to give something else barrier, and you either have to protect him or he dies, and it can be hard to protect something. It makes it feel a little bit better that you're protecting a 4 mana 3/5 instead of 4 mana 2/5, but that does make it hard for him to be played because he's hard to protect, and he's also pretty slow as well. He's not super useful in other aspects. I feel like he'd maybe have to have his own barrier to start to really push him a bit more. Overall, I don't expect to see a boost in Shen play by much. There'll be people who try it and maybe here and there, but his issues that he has are still there and they're not going away with this power increase. Vi received a nerf, one that I personally am happy with. To me personally, I think this is actually a pretty relevant change. I don't think she's a bad card by any means now, don't get me wrong, but the fact that this no longer trades into Radiant Guardian, for instance, favorably, I think is a pretty big deal. The fact that 5 attack now kills this when a lot of cards are 5 mana 5/5s, there are so many cards that are 5 mana 5/5s in this game, where it gives them so much of a better chance against Vi, where she's not always 2 for 1-ing. She usually does regardless because she does have Challenger, but I like this change. I think it is, once again, a little something for Vi to kind of push back her power level because she was pretty insane in some cases. She levels up fairly quickly. Just being able to play like a 5 mana 8/5 with Challenger and Tough was crazy at times. This makes it a little bit more bearable. So I like the direction this goes in. I like it how, for this, I feel like it should be a small change. Like, this feels a small but relevant change to me. I like it. I think it's a really good balance for this one. Probably one of my favorite balances of the patch, where the other ones I feel like there's just not enough going on. I feel like Vi got about what she deserved. I don't think she needed to have too much more done because I think it would just ruin the card, and I think some other cards have kind of experienced that, such as Hecarim. He just got gutted, and we haven't seen our pony for a long time because of that. And speaking of which, there he is! He is getting a little boost. His power is growing from 4 to 5. How relevant? I don't know what to say about that one. I don't think it's going to be relevant enough. I think it's just too slow now. Like, our meta is so much faster when mid-range Hecarim was a thing. It's much, much faster now, and as all those other SI cards got nerfed as well, I just don't see it being enough. He just trades into everything now. One of his issues is that he's kind of slow, as well as the fact he's a 6-mana 5/5. You've seen what Vi looks like, right? You seen what that looks like? You see what she looks like as a 5-drop? And you see what Hecarim looks like. And you'd be like, oh, well, he summons, you know, 2/2/2s when he attacks, but you're essentially saying that this guy can't block and he can attack, and then he can get chump blocked by his 2/2s can get chump blocked. Like, Vi is just so better than Hecarim, and it kind of hurts. I like how they're doing something and trying to, like, you know, bring them back, because ephemeral combos and synergies are such a cool concept, and I would like to see cool things to be able to be done with it. And it was kind of fun when Hecarim midrange was a thing until we figured out, you know, you just put Hecarim and then play Relentless Pursuit with him, and that was it. But there are other things too. I just feel like ephemeral is such a cool concept, and I want to be able to see it work out more. I don't think this is going to be enough. Hecarim trading isn't what we want. I would rather him be a 4/6 than a 5/5, just because he does need to live. He really does need to attack twice, it feels like, to be relevant. But it's something, once again, but I feel very similar to Shen, where we might see it a little bit more here and there, but I don't think it's going to make that huge of a difference. But I am happy that it is something. The overwhelm with a 5 attack feels a bit better than before, but still not excellent by any means. Here is my most disliked change, is the Greathorn Companion. And the reason is this guy right here. No surprise that this guy got nerfed. He deserves a nerf. He's still probably too good in my opinion. I think 4-mana 3/1 with Scout, and then even with the Loyal Badgerbear nerf, well, we'll look at that later, I still think this guy is too good. I think he's still disgusting, and I do not like him. No. I think he's too good still, but at least it's a change. I'm alright with that change. But this one right here, so because they nerfed this guy, they're saying that they want to move the power up the curve a bit and make Scout decks more viable. I just really disagree with this, because I think this is too slow in a Scout deck, for instance. Like, I don't think you're ever gonna play Misfortune Scouts and be like, yeah, I'm gonna start adding this 5/5. There's just better cards that you can add instead. And the issue with this is, it's just a giant buff to Remembrance. Of course, this is also a slight buff to Remembrance. I don't think it's just a slight buff. Like, think about it this way. You're playing against someone who's attacking on odds, they turn 3, play a Remembrance, and they get this guy. That, if you don't want to block it, like, say if you're a mid-range deck and you've played, you know, these chunky creatures, and you don't want to block it, you are taking 10 damage to the face now, on turn 3 against a control list. And that to me is just, alrighty, the 4/5 was very frustrating, then you have Radiant Guardian, then you have another 5/5, but the fact that this thing attacks twice that's gross. You mean it gets to trade with me, and on top of that gets to do 5 damage to my face, or does 10 damage to my face? That's half my Nexus health from a control deck on turn 3. Like, that one, why does Remembrance need a buff? Remembrance is already a great card. Remembrance does not need a buff. It's already a great card on one of the best decks in the game, Lux and Karma. And I don't think that nerfing Grizzled Ranger and Loyal Badgerbear are going to hurt Lux and Karma that much. I don't think it hurts them so much that we now need a buff Remembrance. Like, when Shadow Isles got nerfed, it got nerfed, like, really hard into the ground, a bit too hard. But I feel like DEMACIA is kind of getting a little, you know, just another, not even a slap on the wrist, it's just like once again, a little tap on the wrist, really. This is one that I personally don't understand. I'm sure the devs do have good reasoning for it, but I think this idea of we wanted Scout decks to have more viable options, I just don't think that's gonna happen. They're too slow right now, and this card in particular is too slow. Remembrance doesn't need a buff, so I really dislike this change personally. I don't understand why this needed a buff. There are so many other regions that could use much better buffs, like Freylord. Freylord got a buff, which, oh, it's way down here. So Freylord got this buff, which maybe this card gets played a little bit more. There's not too much more to say about the Kindly Tavernkeeper, but why does Greathorn need a buff? Like, Freylord is struggling hard. This guy, I mean, he's a fun card and all, but I'm sorry, Laurent. I just don't think you're gonna see play. Another random challenger in hand, like, you just don't know what that is. Why not just play a better challenger card than something that creates a challenger? There's enough where you don't have to worry about having extra options. Like, he becomes a little bit better in Arena, but after that, it's like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, 1 health versus 2 health is a change, but I just still don't think this guy is good enough, unfortunately. I went over this guy too. I still think he's too strong. I'm glad that they did something, but I think he's still pretty nuts. I think that card is very, very strong. Badgerbear, a change that we all pretty much were hoping to see. I think I personally would have liked to see a 4-3, but we have other cards like that that have text that are 4-3s, but 4 health for 3 mana is still pretty scary, and this hurts Freljord quite a bit because you can't frostbite it with the Brittle Steel, for instance. I am happy with this change, it's fine. I think it's still alright. Not insane anymore, but still pretty good. Standalone, I'm happy to see this card gone. It's gone. It's dead. It's dead. 4 mana plus the 3/3, and that, yeah, led to undesirable gameplay patterns. Yeah, it did. It did. So, just, you know, not playing anything and then playing it. I abused this card a lot earlier, so I understand. Like, it was kind of fun not playing anything the first 2 rounds and be like, haha, gotcha. But I think it was unhealthy for the game, so this is a card that I've complained about for many months now, so I'm happy to see it change. Personally, though, I don't like the way that they changed it. I'd like to see it a 2/2 instead, 3 mana 2/2. That's still pretty good for a stat that sticks around. It just, I don't like changing it to 4 in that case, because it is just kind of gone, but at the same time, I don't hate this card being gone either. I'm okay with this card being gone. You know, it can go away. Rearguard, this one's a bit strange to me. I hadn't really read exactly what this was going through, so they're looking at the data. I assume that this was my guess, is that they felt like the win rate was higher than other cards on Curve. I can understand where they're coming from for sure on that. I think the most relevant thing about this is that the fact that Omen Hawk now trades into this. I think that is actually a pretty big deal, is that Omen Hawk being able to trade into this 1-for-1 instead of 2-for-1ing, because you have to chump block it twice, is, I think that's pretty relevant, and I can understand going off the data for this. However, I think you just don't play this card anymore and you play something like Teemo instead. You just play another 1-drop. Another 1-drop that's hard to interact with and that makes your opponent's head want to explode. So that's how I feel about this guy, is I think he might be a bit done for, and I think you just play Teemo instead, because this guy is too easy to deal with now. Especially if you draw him later in the game, someone plays like Withering Wail or something. Teemo, you can just do more with him on 1 at the time, it feels like, because he's not going to get blocked by some of the early game things, which this guy before could deal with. Talk about this guy a bit. Not really sure how I feel about where he's going to go. Like, at least Freljord got something, but Freljord's still in a lot of trouble. And I don't think this guy's going to be able to save it. The idea is probably to help out with some of the burns. 3 mana 3/3 is quite a bit better in stats, so I'm happy with that change. This card, probably no one's surprised about. Deep Meditation, 4 to a 5 cost. One thing that I dislike about this card is that it does become another Heimer elusive turret activator, and that is pretty scary. I don't really feel like Heimer needs any help, especially on the high roll nature of things. The Flash of Brilliance is already a pretty annoying card to go against, really, and seeing this help out Heimer is a bit annoying. However, it does hurt Lux and Karma a bit, which that makes me pretty happy. I don't know how relevant it is, but yeah, the 2 mana draw 2 spells is disgusting, so I'm happy that they made this change. I don't think I mind the way that they changed it either. I dislike it being a Heimer buff, but besides that, change seems fine to me. Boomcrew Rookie, a card that people have complained about for a bit now, and it's deal 2 to the Nexus. When you attack, it's a 2 mana, was a 1/4, it's now a 1/3. I think this makes it where he gets 1 attack instead of 2 attacks more often, so I think it's a pretty good nerf. I like this nerf. I think it's pretty solid overall. It's better, I think, for non-burn players. I think it being an 0-4 is better than it being a 1/3 personally, because the 0-4 pretty much made it where you're going to get 2 attacks every time, and this actually gives us a chance to block. Like, think of like Claws of the Dragon, for instance, can now block this card and kill it. That feels pretty good. So I like this change, and those are the only 2 changes to burn. Personally, I think Burn is going to still play Boomcrew Rookie and then like play Teemo or something instead of Rearguard. I still think it's going to be a good deck, and I think people are still going to complain about it and be upset with it. I'll be really interested to see how it does, but I feel like that is going to be something that happens. I could be wrong on it, you know, these are all predictions, but I feel like Burn is not really going to go anywhere, and I don't think people will be happy hearing that, but that is my thought on it, and it'll be interesting to see, because even more so, Burn still being in a less bad spot when we see this. Because Brood Awakening was a big part of the Karina control that was able to help stop the burn aggro against you, because you could play all those 2-1 chump blockers and be able to make trades and stuff, you know, get a wide board that way. But now it's to 6. I think I think you still play the card, but it does hurt it a little bit. It does make it quite a bit slower. So it is a bit interesting. Something that I dislike about the comments though in this, it says, it was control decks or kill your own units combo decks. They Who Endure, I think, has like a 52% win rate and maybe 50% in some of the different elos. So I don't really feel like that deck was a problem. I had no issue with that deck whatsoever. I felt like you were, you know, you were killing off things, but you also had to play in a certain way so you were getting that reward at the end. And then because you played Atrocity on They Who Endure, you had to play around other cards and stuff too. You couldn't just be like, it wasn't just an I win button by any means. So I feel like that was a pretty healthy combo deck, so I don't really think it did need to be touched very much. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the Brood Awakening change, but I don't think it, like, ruins the card or anything either. Next one is Longtooth, which is my second favorite change after Vladimir. I think it going up to 2 health is a really good change, and a little help to Fizz as well. The fact that it was a 5-1, I mean, 1 health gets dealt with so easily in this game, so making it 2 health makes it a lot more relevant, especially when you have to play a slow spell for it. Like, if you have to play a slow spell and it goes off, you should be able to get the rewards for that slow spell in most cases. And before, you didn't necessarily get that with Longtooth, but now I feel like you get that a lot better, so I really like this change. I think it's a really good change for the card. Monkey Idol from 4 to 5, immobile, can't block, can't attack. I mean, it's something. It gets to live an extra round now, but it's definitely a meme still, and I don't think this changes too much for us. Alright, my third favorite change is definitely Slotbot. Its power going up to 1, its health going up to 4. I am ready to meme. I am so ready to meme. I already have a deck built for this. I can't spoil it. It's pretty exciting. I'm really excited about the deck that I have built, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So if you want to see that Vlad deck, Slotbot deck, make sure to subscribe, like the video if you enjoy it, and those are kind of my thoughts on things. If you want to see a Slotbot and a Vladimir deck, please make sure to subscribe, because those will be coming up in the future, and also leave a like on this video too, because it helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. But now, for the things that we were not waiting for. The watch list, Unyielding Spirit, this card, this one's a bit frustrating for me, so I don't want to talk about, you know, I don't want to be too negative for too long, but Unyielding Spirit, just unhealthy for the game. It's not good for the opponent's interaction. Like, they talk about this too. I don't understand why the change isn't happening now. Like, it's been an issue for a bit. Like, this isn't like we found out this card was, you know, OP a week ago or something. And maybe not even OP might be the wrong word, but toxic is a better word. Makes things kind of boring to play against because, oh, now they can't die and I don't have the answer in my deck. Looks like I lost. It's just that kind of thing where it doesn't promote healthy gameplay. I don't think it's healthy for the game by any means, and I really am excited for when it does get changed. The idea of having this card around for another month it makes me a bit sad. I'm happy for Unyielding Kegs, that's about it, but I'm not happy for it. Karma Lux is still pretty spooky, and yeah, I'm just not ready for another month of dealing with this card. I do not like it. Pilfered Goods and card stealing, personally, I think these are pretty toxic. I know that I've made videos on it, and it is pretty fun. Like, when good things happen, it's fun. I understand, but I also think it is a very toxic thing to do, and I can understand why people are upset. It also hurts Freljord a lot. Yeah, see, they kind of mentioned that a bit, and I agree with them. It's a frustrating experience. I think you should personally, in my perfect world, it would be a copy of the bottom cards of the deck, except like obviously, you know, it would go up. You wouldn't get the same card every time, but it would be a copy of the bottom cards. So I wouldn't want it to get the buff effects, because I don't think you should get this advantage just from queuing up into a buff deck. Oh, you're running Steel and you're against a buff deck and you have this huge advantage now because you get to see all the buffs they do and you just get to steal at the right time. I don't think that takes a lot of skill. I don't think that's super necessary. So I feel like it should be cards at the bottom of the deck, and I think it should be copies of the card. I don't think you should be able to steal your opponent's win condition out of pure luck. For instance, stealing Atrocities, stealing Karina, stealing Ladros. I don't think stealing your opponent's win conditions at the bottom of the deck is good for the game. It's random chance. I don't think the random chance should deserve that. That's my issue with those cards, is you're stealing random cards and sometimes you get your opponent's win condition. Of course, it makes for great highlight moments, and it is fun when it happens to you. It feels pretty terrible when it happens to the opponent. I actually had a game today where I took Karina and Ladros, reduced the cost of both. Turn 7 I played Karina, turn 8 I played Ladros. They conceded. To me, it was hilarious. Like, it was absolutely hilarious. But to them, it feels awful, and I can understand why my opponent would be annoyed with that game, because it was pure luck that I stole those, and I think it is a bit dumb that I was able to play their win condition before they were able to play their win condition when I didn't even have that in my deck. So I think Pilfered Goods and card stealing, I think they need to tone down the toxicity and make it where it steals the bottom cards, or not steals, copies the bottom cards of the deck and just moves up each time. So that's how I would change it to make it less toxic. Nexus Damage and Rising Tides. Yeah. Well, it's a bit of an issue, for sure. I specifically think all these burn cards that we're not getting touched at all. Like, I guess Boomcrew Rookie did, but then after that, think of all the burn cards in the game that Noxus and P&Z run together. It's still pretty low interaction overall, and there's not much you can do about it in a lot of cases. So I think that definitely will need a change in the future. So Karma Ezreal, I'm not super unhappy with the way Karma and Ezreal are right now, but part of the reason is it's not really being played all that much. I say it here every once in a while. I do think the combo is pretty uninteractive, and I think turn 10, which I do often see this happen at turn 10, is way too early for a combo, especially a burst speed combo that you can't interact with. So I do think Karma Ezreal will be a issue in the future. Not sure about next patch. Well, I mean, I still think it's an issue right now personally, but I don't think it's like a game-breaking issue at the time. But in the future, I think Karma will still need a bigger nerf. All in all, I don't mind these patch notes. I think there's some good changes in them. I do worry, though, that the best decks are going to remain some of the best decks, because these changes overall are... Nothing's like, oh, that got gutted, which is good, because over-nerfing cards can definitely be an issue, but I feel like a lot of things aren't that much of a change, and even more so with Unyielding not being changed. So I feel like what's going to happen is we're going to see the same decks a lot of the time with a little less power level. I think we might see a few more sea monsters and a few other things spring up here and there. Maybe a little less They Who Endure with this nerf, but that wasn't really an issue to begin with, in my opinion. I think overall we're going to have a pretty similar meta to what we do right now, and that does worry me a bit, in the idea of, you know, just staying the same meta for months on end is a bit spooky for me, especially because things tend to be a little bit more stagnant when we only have a very limited set of cards at the time. Obviously, we're not going to have an expansion for a bit, and that's understandable, but I just don't know how much these changes are shaking up the meta, and I feel like if you're going to make patches, I don't know, I feel like shaking up the meta might be necessary. It depends on the state of the meta too. You know, some metas are just really healthy and you don't want to shake them up that much, and we'll have to see. Burn has been pretty oppressive in the meta. Will this be enough to make it not as oppressive? It'll make it a little less oppressive, sure. But I don't think Burn is going away by any means, and I think, like I said, I still think it's going to upset people. Same thing with DEMACIA. I think DEMACIA is still the strongest region in the game. I don't think that changes whatsoever with these, and I think that's also going to annoy people. However, I'll still be having fun, and I still enjoy the game, and I love the game, and I know that devs work really hard on it, so I appreciate them. I know that they love the game. Make sure that you are kind with your criticisms, because know that the devs love the game just as much as you do. Like, they wouldn't be doing what they do if they didn't love this. Although I might have disagreements with some things that they do, I know that they still took the time. Like, they take a lot of time, they look at data, they look at people's opinions too on Reddit and stuff too. Like, they do everything. They're not balancing off of Reddit, don't get me wrong, but they're taking into account lots of things, and they're doing the best they can, so remember that they're humans and that they care about this game. So if you do ever have criticisms or talk to them, remember that, and it's really important to remember that they want the best for the game just like you do. I think that's an important note, and I think that's something that us as gamers, it's really easy for us to be like, why would they do that? That sucks, like, this is the worst thing ever. But they want the best for the game just like us. Like I said earlier, criticizing things is absolutely fine, but just do it in a respectful manner and know that everyone wants the best for the game, and that's important to all of us. That being said, I do hope that you have a fantastic day. I'm excited for this patch, and there are definitely some new things to try, especially with Vladimir. I'm very excited for that, and I think that overall these are still positive changes. I think these are still positive changes. It's pretty light changes, not changes that I think are going to make a huge difference on the meta or what we're seeing, but they are bringing down the power levels of some of the more oppressive decks, and that's exciting. That's good stuff, and I'm happy with it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I do appreciate you being here and taking the time. You got to this point, that's awesome, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!
That's how we do things in Bilgewater.